she's at her like lowest point. Although I don't necessarily recommend it as a mid crush, but it's a jump and attack that it has the ability to both high crush and even mid crush. So. Another thing also with their Oki is that you can also basically also when you have them at the wall, you can kind of combine it too. So you can use 6P 2K as like a force tech after like a wall combo, or PP 2K, even though this move is still just simply, it's still treated as a ground hit as opposed to a force tech. But of course, if you get a ground hit, then just do like another 2K just to wake them up if they get up. If the opponent pushes a button while you ground hit them, then it will be treated as a force tech. But if they don't push anything, then yeah, they'll stay on the ground, so you'll have to hit them again. But yeah, in a corner, I recommend either 6B 2K or any variation of it, or PP 2K. The thing also with these being strings is that if they tech roll, then you don't have to go. If they end up tech rolling, then you don't have to go for it, and just then just use like PP or 6B to just use PP or like 6P to kind of poke. Because there's a string after, what you can do is you can end up like hitting them on wake up. I mean, that's also kind of the essence too of an unholdable. I won't necessarily go into like what an unholdable is, but what it generally is hitting the opponent on a frame before they're able to perform a hold, meaning that they're pretty much forced to have to block the attack. So if you're able to like time it and can get 6PK to be blocked, then you can end up then you can end up being relatively safe. So you have to be a bit careful if you're like directly in front of the wall. Then yeah, they can end up throw punishing it, but then you can try and sneak in the low. So I mean, there's different things you can do, but yeah, but force teching is another way to do it. If you're also worried about having to deal with low wake up kicks, 9K is usually a good go-to option for that. Hits grounded and beats out wake up kicks generally very well, and as I said before, has follow-ups. I'll also show you just one, even though this I was probably going to go over this like a little later, but I might as well just show you also another Oki setup. If I can set the opponent up here right. But the opponent automatically gets up, but yes, if they... Normally this would end up hitting them like automatically. Because the opponent is using a delayed tech roll, but if you do lie down, then you can use 4H+K as a force tech. Alright, now just gonna continue on now with some more attributes with relation to Kasumi. Alright, right now I'm gonna be talking about her defense a bit. Overall, I would say Kasumi's defense is surprisingly quite good, thanks to her basically her various holds. So her hold game and her parries, coupled with her devastating counter hit ability. Alright, opponents will generally be having trouble frame tracking Kasumi due to having to deal with their 9-frame jab or her 6-frame elbow, which can counter hit quite well. Her throw punishment is also pretty good. I mean, she does have some pretty powerful throws. So I mean, she has 17-frame throw, and of course just stun blocks, you can do a simple forward throw to get your I7 throw punishment. Which, of course, this is your general go-to throw, but for punish and holds, though, you can get good damage with 3-3-T. Alright, but I mean, overall, her holds do deal fairly... Her holds do generally deal, like, average, kind of, like, relatively, like, average damage. Like, which is, the average, I think, is about 52. Like, for off of, like a mid-punch hold, a standard mid-punch hold, you can do 52. Off of her, like, if she were to do a standard mid-kick, you can get, well, it's 52 on normal hit. And for a high punch, well, that was high counter, so it's all of them, they do around like 52. I mean, the more standout holds would be her low kick hold and her expert mid kick hold. I already showed you like one of the combos off of the low kick hold. Well, that was the combo to set up Oki, but I could show you like with the low kick can set up decent damage. Oh shoot. I'm messing with that. The most general go-to one I use is her, well, I generally just call it the swag combo out. End up saying what the notation is a little later because it's a little long. So yeah, so you can generally get I was gonna go over combos a little later, but yeah, you'll get the idea. I also will tell you like some combos you can do with the low kick hold or the mid kick hold, but in general, yes, those are the holds that do tend to yield her the most damage. Like this one, that the combo I did generally does 67 damage on normal hit and it shows there 84 on counter hit. Oh, I got counter hit again, but I was in front of a wall, so it wouldn't have worked. That's the only kind of downside about I call the swag combo is it does the first teleport attack does knock the opponent back pretty far away. But actually, sometimes, even when I'm talking about just her mid kick hold, sometimes I just use her standard. I just use her standard kick hold because it actually sets up like it keeps the opponent in a pretty good position to continue pressure. So that's why sometimes I do this if I'm like rushing down my opponent as opposed to going for damage. So I mean, like Ayane's like standard mid-kick hold, I admit, is not really the greatest, but Kasumi's is still like decent enough, where Ayane's doesn't really do that much damage and doesn't really give her that much, where either one is fine, where like with this one you would end up, you only kind of get slightly more damage. Like what I mean though is on average off of that hold, you usually don't get more than maybe around 70. Well, you don't get more than about like 70, 71. Where the standard one, yeah, it does do 52, but it also, like if you end up getting high counter, it's still decent damage, so, but... Oh. But anyway, I'll just continue on now. I mean, so other than her low kick or mid kick hold, I mean, the other holds are still just kind of do relatively like standard damage and don't necessarily have any sort of real standout properties to them. One thing I find really neat to Kasumi is the fact that she's a 9-frame jabber and 11-frame midder with a fast low that also happens to have parries. Basically, I mean, yeah, she does have a high parry, even though quite frankly, I don't really use it. I don't even necessarily recommend it because you might as well just go for a high hold. But obviously, having a mid parry can always be useful because of the ability for it to option select both mid punches and mid kicks. So it just covers both of them. You have to be careful that its frame window is not as large as a standard hold. Like standard holds have 18 frame windows, parries have only 12 frame windows. They both end up having the same total recovery if you were to whiff it, but being able to utilize a parry is really nice. So yeah, after this you can just... Generally you can get a 6P after that, which can lead to some juggles or just some standard 6P, which can lead to stun mix-ups, or you could just go for her 5-frame throw, because the thing with her parries is that the amount of frame advantage you get can vary based on what it does parry. So sometimes you have to be kind of like careful with what follow-ups you do. Like obviously a 5-frame throw is 5 frames, so that's basically the fastest thing you can do. Where this is 6B, 6K is a 11-frame move. But if you want to get like combos, then you generally just use that one. On top of just having her standard mid parries, she also has expert parries, even though I don't really necessarily find them that much better, but still it still allows her some options. What it does is it allows her to go into her Hoshimpo stance. Because I find that being able to just do a standard parry, then being able to do 6BK or just going for like a standard throw is usually good enough. But with the expert parries, you can get some kind of swag if you end up just whiff punishing with the throw. Because the throws come out of Hoshimpo, so it does go quite fast. But yeah, for me, that's mostly for style points than being practical. But still, like I said, it looks quite cool though. So. But I find that something though with like Kasumi though can really augment her defense and her overall game plan. It's just the fact that when the opponent thinks it's their turn to attack, like if you leave yourself a disadvantage, then you can just option select their mids. So like, I mean, if opponents like using strings that go like on normal hit go PP 6K or PP 6P, then you can end up using the mid parry to option select that situation. I mean, the kind of benefits about having the parries is it can make it really hard for really hard for some characters like to gain momentum on her, because they have to keep that parry in mind. I mean, yeah, she's a high parry, but I don't think anyone really pays any attention to that. But yeah, I mean, I just find it like kind of neat though having a speedy rushdown character that can option select opponent's defense like that. Oh, and also it was also said in AP's tutorial also that part of Kasumi's defense is, or part of her defense is also essentially her ability to kind of like interrupt and counter hit really well. I mean, for some of the slower characters like Bass, you can really shake them up and throw them off their game if you can make proper use of jab intercepts. Or jab interrupts, or like 6P interrupts. Because of course, if you interrupt something with 6P, then you're getting that juicy counter hit stun. Right there, plus 27. Yeah, so if you are able to counter hit, then you can get good. I mean, if you're feeling really swag, then you can counter hit with 7K. Although I don't, like I said earlier, it is -30. So I mean, it's basically use at your own risk. But if you do end up interrupting someone with that, then yeah, you can really like throw off like, the hell you're just YOLOing me or something. So I mean, if you against like Bass, you might just if you feel like just really throwing them off, then you can like chuck it out. But I do recommend them 6P a bit more than 7K, but yeah, you get the idea though. I mean, being like a big part of Kasumi's defense is not allowing the opponent to get their offensive pressure running or their offensive momentum going at all. Like you just want to like try and keep them, like I said earlier, you just want to try and keep them locked down. All right, but now I'm going to be going on to the another section of Kasumi where you have to kind of be a bit little careful with is her attack range. Like overall, I'd say Kasumi's attack range is decent for what is essentially a rushdown character. Like I mean, she can fight fairly well. She can obviously dominate close range, and she can fight fairly comfortably from mid range. But if you go anywhere beyond mid range, like if you end up going at long range, I mean, essentially Kasumi doesn't want to be at this range, because basically if you are at this somehow ended up at this range, what this means is that your focus has to be on trying to find some way to get in. All right, recommended ways to get in is just, well, you can just kind of run up like a. I mean, in for my top tier tips stream, my very first session I did for the advanced guide was movement. So in there you can end up seeing that I tend to recommend just having good generic movement, which is usually achieved by pressing forward, then back. You can also yeah, with the forward and back, the thing that I like take a note is when you are hold back, so if you end up pressing back twice while holding, you end up being put into a stance where you can block all highs and mids. So obviously if you're running at your opponent, you're pretty much almost automatically at disadvantage. So what that means is that if you're not careful, you can leave yourself to being counter hit by something if you just run in recklessly and just pushing buttons or something. So obviously spacing with Kasumi, a big part of spacing with Kasumi is trying to find a way to get in them safely. A way you can do that is you can try her Hoshimpo dash with 3 P+K. What this does is dashes her forward while ducking all highs. There are options out of it. So yeah, but even though with here, the main recommendation is just to do it and just kind of, and maybe you can guard. But it is an option. My recommended option is just simply making use of good generic movement to get in. Once you're in a round, this is the range that she hovers at if she's contemplating either whiff punishing or counter hitting an opponent. Like if you counter hit something with 4P, you get a good counter hit stun. 3K also has decent stun, and with this, then you can kind of move in and on your opponent, do different things. So I mean, when the opponent's stunned, you can also just think of it that it's just simply pure frame advantage. Like off of like a counter hit 4P or 3K, like they're around like. Well, you're at about +24, +25, so that gives you about 25 frames to be able to get into close range. What you want to be careful though are characters that have really good keep out ability, because characters with good keep out ability can really test her get in abilities. If you're fighting someone with good keep out, then obviously you're gonna have to be extra patient. Like as soon as you like get in close against like most characters, then you're usually in control. Like characters you want with good keep out, you want to be careful of are characters like Janli or Ayane. Like those are the two like common ones, or even like Hitomi or Ain also have good keep out. But I do find that with Janli you have to be a bit careful. Once you get in close on them, then you can usually pressure them to your relative heart's content. But you do want to be careful of characters that can keep out well, and also I mean even ones like I think like Nayo Tengu, but generally my recommendation is that with Kasumi, the only time you're ever going to be at long range is if I'm trying to contemplate what my next move is. Then once you've kind of like determined what you're going to do, then you're going to have to approach the opponent. Like the only time you would ever really see me doing that is either if you have like a really big life lead, or if the opponent has a fairly sizable life lead, and then you have to kind of think like, oh, you have to think how you to get your offense started on your opponent. Because obviously, if you have a large life lead, what that basically means is that you can start to turtle. So obviously, if someone, I mean, going the other way, if someone runs in on Kasumi, then they're just asking to be like counter hit by something. Like generally, if someone's running at you, if someone's running in at you, 3K generally stops them in their tracks quite well. So your mid-range pokes also happen to be your good, your good kind of anti-run-in or keep-out tools. And obviously, if they run into this, then they just deserve. If they run into this, then they're gonna feel it. I mean, even at if you are playing keep-out, 4H+K it actually is. I mean, it's just basically just a solid all-round move in my opinion. The thing I like about it though is that it also has fairly fast recovery at only 22 frames of recovery. So even then, you could just kind of just chuck it out, and sometimes even if you whiff it, you can generally still do something right after. But the general thing though is that this move, I mean, like you said, I mean, although it's still a risky game plan, you can almost use this as kind of to bait someone to run at you. But yeah, but for range though, like generally try not to go beyond mid range, because I mean, especially at like a start of a round, you can get in close and really just stay there and just basically just harass your opponent with her strings. And especially also when you are fishing for that kind of counter hit stun, a nice thing about Kasumi is that her stun game actually is really good in general. Because when you do get it, when you do get that counter hit stun, you can end up using like your 3 PP as like a 2-in-1. You can use 6K or even, well, 3K is okay for extending the stun, but if you like want a mid kick option, you can go straight for a combo. You can go straight for like a combo starter, so stun launch. Yeah, but Kasumi can like really blitz through the threshold. So what that means is that she can usually get to critical burst. She can get to critical burst like relatively easily. Although, I mean, yeah, her critical burst in itself is not really anything special. It's a 20 frame move that's -8 on block, so it is unsafe and it doesn't have any special follow-ups. But the reason why that is because Kasumi can usually get the critical burst easier than most characters. Alright, if you do end up getting a critical burst, the launchers I generally recommend after it in like open space is 236p, or what I kind of just used there was, if you hit 4 H+K on a back turn opponent, it will launch. So just turn slightly, then you get the launcher, and what it does is it sets up a slightly stronger version of the juggle that I would do off this. So I mean, I already showed like before in front of a wall. If you do get in front of here, the go-to will generally be right there with the 3-3P. But a big part of how I usually play Kasumi is not even worrying so much about going for critical burst. Just basically counter hit your opponent. So a big thing about Kasumi or just DOA in general is when you get to a big stun such as like a lift stun, you actually don't have to attack right away. A thing I do that actually can really throw off opponents, after you stun them, just reposition yourself. Like what you're doing is two things, is you're trying to bait out a hold, because it can really throw off your opponent, but the main thing I'm also doing is I'm positioning myself. Like you may see me do this a lot if I want to get you right at the wall. So what I do is I counter hit stun you, then I position you at the wall, then I wall slam you, and just go for my juggle. So with your stun game, pretty much Kasumi can be in a lot of control. I mean, in general, during stun, jabs do actually extend the threshold fairly nicely. I mean, so you get like over plus 35 there. And I mean, during the stun game, your primary counter hit tool will be your 6B. I mean, you can get a stun with 1K, but I think it knocks down on counter hit. So instead, you would end up setting up Oki, which is another option you can go for. But with the stun game, the purpose is you can either just go for stun launch, or you can just, what I do is just like kind of go for more of like a just reset the whole. Like the reason why I take my time is because what you're doing is kind of using the stun as just like frame advantage to keep the opponent on the defensive. Because obviously, if you stun them and you're just waiting, the opponent will still be relatively afraid to attack. So what I could do is just waited, and I just counter hit you again if you try and push a button. And you basically keep doing that until you get sick of it and you do something stupid. You get either counter hit again, or I can then get in like a high counter throw once you start like whiffing a hold. So I find that Kasumi can play that kind of game quite well, especially if you like combine it with their string delays. So like I find it's kind of a big way to keep the opponent on the defensive. You can also combine in her 7th frame reset throw 4-6T. So I mean, there's different things you can go. A usual thing I usually tend to do is just try just fish for like a big throw. As soon as they whiff a hold, you can either do like 2-1-4T or 3-3T. Around mid-range, if you can also do fish for a stun. If you can counter hit something with 6-6P or 6-6PP. I mean, 6-6PP, then doing the P ends up setting up a pretty big sit-down stun, which you can get a small juggle off of. A similar ranged move is her 6-6K. Well, I think it actually reaches a little further than 6-6P, so this move also stuns on normal hit. Generally, any launcher on normal hit will usually be a lift stun. Like on counter hit, they launch, but on normal hit, most launching moves that are counter hit launchers will be a big lift stun. In DOA5 last round, that's what you want to go for. You want those you want the lift stun. Like during threshold, a good go-to lift stun is just a single 3P. Let me just set it to counter. See, if you do 2, you end up going into the threshold further, but it doesn't give you as much frame advantages as doing once, and then you leave. Of course, like I said earlier, you leave the H+K option open. So I mean, I'll just like give you the heads up that lift stuns are very useful and very powerful to get. Use P+K. I mean, there's numerous moves. There are numerous moves you can use, but 3P and P+K will generally be the more common ones. If you do extend the threshold, they will launch, like I said earlier. But yeah, but with their stun game, feel free to take your time. Please remember that Kasumi can mix up on like any hit level. So I mean, even her 6B 2K low provides a decent amount of frame advantage even on normal hits. If you actually do this move in front of a wall, you can extend with the same moves as if it was 1K. Like you could do your elbow, your 4P, or if you're feeling frisky, you can try your 7K. So pretty much any 12 frame or faster move. And generally for Kasumi, a big component of her stun game is if you can end up setting up those juicy sit-down stuns. So I mean, the most common one would be, I mean, probably, like I said, it's just it's pretty much like just, in my opinion, it's probably one of Kasumi's better moves overall. It's just 4 H+K. See right there, obviously with the